This program was made possible by funding from the University of Central Florida's Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies.
The clarity of the water, where when I was a kid, you could see 10, 12 feet down in the lagoon. Now you couldn't even see a foot down. The water was all murky and cloudy. There were algae blooms.
And we're interested in seeing how this very important green turtle nursery area can tell us what it can tell us about the status, especially the changing status of the green turtle.
Hello, I'm Linda Chapin with the University of Central Florida. Today, and in this Naturally Central Florida series, I'd like to tell you about some places, very special places, that exist right here in Central Florida. They're unique because this place we live is unique. Scientists tell us that Central Florida is where the tropical zone meets the temperate zone, and thus it creates a spot where plants and animals and vistas are unlike any other place in the world. We're going to begin in today's program with one of the most fascinating and fragile of those places, the Indian River Lagoon. Stretching 156 miles along Florida's east-central coast from Ponce Inlet to Jupiter Inlet, this natural treasure is really an estuary, a unique geographical space where freshwater and saltwater mingle. It supports more than 4,300 species of plants and animals, more than any other estuary in North America. You may already know about it. Maybe you visited the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge where the sea turtles come to nest, or had lunch at one of the great seafood restaurants in Volusia and Brevard counties. But to those who haven't, or who may be new to Central Florida, we're going to tell you not just about the places we care about, but the people who live and work and play and enjoy time with their families at the Indian River Lagoon and the other treasured places we want to protect. Naturally Central Florida's Alicia Callanan Mandigo takes us to meet one of those people.
So you're going to get a coconut shrimp and a stuffed shrimp. Those are both Cape Canaveral white shrimp. They're great big huge shrimp. And then rock shrimp, as Lillian said, that's what we're known for.
You might end up wearing butter. As you can tell, my shirt's worn it already.
These are the whites, the large Georgia whites. They get split and then breaded.
They can do 2,000 or 3,000 pounds a day, just this small crew. They're very, very fast. This is the number one thing that people want to eat when they come to Florida. They gotta have shrimp.
Laura Lee Thompson would know. She runs a virtual shrimp empire based largely on the rock shrimp industry she helped create, now colorful folklore for tourists visiting her family's restaurant.
What he said was, they taste like lobster. These are great, they taste like lobster. One Sunday afternoon, we were all sitting around trying to dream up ways to cook rock shrimp, and it's like this light bulb went off in my head. And I said, wait a minute, if they taste like lobster, what would happen if you cooked them like a lobster?
Thompson was 15 when she had that brainstorm. She went on to become one of the industry's first female commercial fishing boat captains. She is now a stalwart environmentalist committed to protecting the Indian River Lagoon.
I grew up on the river, so when I was a kid, the river was crystal clear. There was all kinds of fish. It was just a wonderful place. And I progressed in my career of commercial fishing and graduated from the little small boats in the river, and I moved out onto the ocean and I started running larger commercial longline boats. And I was gone for a little over 10 years, fished all over the southeast from from the Texas-Mexican border all the way to the Carolinas, and almost never came home here to Titusville. When I got off the commercial fishing boat and I came back to help my parents here in the restaurant, I couldn't wait to get out on the lagoon. I couldn't wait to get back out on my beloved Indian River. When I did, I was just appalled at what had happened in the 10 years that I had gone. When I was little, there were blowfish in the river, blowfish everywhere. You would walk out on the pier and there would be dead blowfish all over the pier from people that had been fishing. You can't hardly find a blowfish now. There were horseshoe crabs. I can remember when the horseshoe crabs were mating, they would cover the shorelines. There would be hundreds and hundreds of horseshoe crabs crawling up on the shoreline to lay their eggs. Now, it's very, very difficult to even find a horseshoe crab.
The lagoon has been her family's livelihood for generations. Her father owned a shrimp boat, her grandfather owned a fishing pier, and her family continues to buy from the fishermen who make their living here. Lives have depended on the Indian River Lagoon for almost its entire 10,000-year history. Native populations fished its water for thousands of years before the Spaniards arrived. Their shell mounds, discarded animal bones, and pottery shards can still be found along the shores. Early pioneers made a living catching turtles, leading the way to the commercial and recreational fishing industries that have been the mainstay of life on the lagoon. A visit to Thompson's shrimp processing plant makes it hard to imagine the lagoon used to produce more shrimp than this. But Thompson says years ago, tourists fishing off a pier could net garbage cans of shrimp in an hour. Trout were caught effortlessly, and crab covered the beaches.
Fishing was one of the major industries here in Titusville, both commercial and recreational. And people would come down from up north and they would stay here for 2 or 3 months and go fishing every single day. You could fill up 2 or 3 garbage cans of shrimp. When the shrimp were running, it was really easy to fill up 2 or 3 garbage cans of shrimp in an hour of shrimping on the pier. The trout would come up to the surface under the lights and you could just jig a little piece of cloth and catch trout. Blue crabs, same thing. You could fill up a garbage can with blue crabs in just a short time from fishing from the pier.
Crystal clear waters teeming with fish and crab. They're images that live only in her memory now.
The clarity of the water, when I was a kid, you could see 10, 12 feet down in the lagoon. Now you couldn't even see a foot down. The water was all murky and cloudy. There were algae blooms. The rocks in Haulover Canal that had beautiful live coral growing on them. When I was a kid, the coral was gone. The sea squirts and all the colorful grasses that were on the rocks were gone, and they were covered with this slimy stuff.
So what have you done? What action have you taken? Obviously you came home, you're shocked by what you're seeing, and somehow you got spurred into helping.
I started looking at ecotourism. I started doing research into ecotourism, and I figured out that because of the huge economic value of the lagoon, that ecotourism might be a way to educate people about the need to save the lagoon and teach them about the economic impact that the lagoon has on our area. So we redecorated the restaurant and painted all the beautiful murals, and we hand out lots of I guess it's like environmental propaganda, but we hand out printed pieces trying to educate people about our natural assets here and the value of them.
Delicious.
So the family restaurant became Thompson's vehicle for preaching environmentalism to guests and fishermen. She hosts a major annual bird watching festival. She teaches her customers more than they ever thought there was to know about shrimp, and leads adventurers through the mysterious beauty of bioluminescence. She is devoted and tireless, but her efforts won't restore the lagoon of her childhood.
The first thing they would have to do is stop dumping Lake Okeechobee into the south end of the lagoon. Got to fix that, which means we have to fix the Everglades. So there's a lot of other factors that that are involved that we don't have a lot of control over. We do have control over the stormwater, and the county and the municipalities are working to try and reduce the amount of stormwater going into the lagoon, but more needs to be done.
Ironically, the lagoon has been afforded some protection from its most famous resident, the Kennedy Space Center. For security reasons, development on the north end of the lagoon near the Space Center is restricted, giving hints that the lagoon could in fact be saved.
I don't know if it'll ever look the way it did when I was a kid, but if you come up here on the north end of the lagoon, you still see a lot of what it was like when I was a kid. There's still, in the north end, because there's no development and the water quality is good, there's still fiddler crabs. There's still quite a few horseshoe crabs up here. That's why the fishing is so good up here. That's why there's more manatees up on this end of the lagoon. We have healthy seagrass beds here.
Do you ever think about who you would be or what your life would be like without the lagoon?
You know, I've done a lot of really interesting things in my life, and no, I don't think I would have had those opportunities had I not grown up on the lagoon. It's my life. It had a major influence on my childhood, and as an adult, it's still my main focus in life, other than keeping the restaurant going, is trying to I would like to see the lagoon get back to the way it looked when I was a kid. And so it's basically my whole life.
As you can see, these waters not only serve as a weekend playground for thousands of residents and visitors, there's a very important economic element involved. A research study a few years ago concluded that the total economic value of the Indian River Lagoon exceeded $750 million a year. Along with businesses like Dixie Crossroads, there's commercial fishing, nature-based tourist activities, and a good deal of scientific research going on. We'll tell you more about that and introduce you to one of those people whose work involves both learning and teaching about the lagoon and its inhabitants when we come back. You might not think about high technology and science when you consider this breezy and beautiful part of Central Florida. But the lagoon, of course, is anchored at one end by the Kennedy Space Center, and it also includes a number of important centers of scientific research and education, including the Hub SeaWorld Research Institute, where a colleague of mine at UCF continues his groundbreaking work. Alicia introduces us.
Head width is 15.3.
It's a good morning on the Indian River Lagoon. Maybe not so much for this juvenile loggerhead, but it's a good morning for these marine biologists and their students.
Got some dreams today. Yeah, caught a couple real fast for summertime. That's really good. Our capture rate's been pretty small this summer, as it usually is most summers.
Green turtles are what they're after today, so it's a short day for this loggerhead. He gets measured, evaluated, and sent on his way to return to his role as one of the lagoon's critical predators.
They're out here munching on all kinds of mollusks, clams, whelks, snails of various kinds, and crustaceans, crabs and shrimp and that sort of thing, shellfish as a general common name category, and they very much fulfill the role of predator in this ecosystem.
Distinguished by the greatest species diversity of any estuary in North America, the Indian River Lagoon is home to more than 4,000 different plants and animals, manatees, dolphins, even seahorses, all of which have been the object of much environmental research. Seagrasses, for instance, are one of the most important inhabitants of the lagoon, providing food and shelter to the water's rich wildlife. But these biologists are with the University of Central Florida Marine Turtle Research Group. Dr. Lou Earhart and his students specialize in the sea turtle's juvenile years, which are spent in the Indian River Lagoon.
And we're interested in seeing how this very important green turtle nursery area can tell us what it can tell us about the status, especially the changing status of the green turtle.
People have been catching turtles in the lagoon since native Florida tribes lived here thousands of years ago. By the late 19th century, turtles were both food and income for pioneers who would catch them and sell them to other Florida settlers. Earhart and his students catch them the way they've always been caught, using long, loosely knotted nets that catch the turtles without catching fish.
People who caught the turtles here and in other parts of the Indian River would keep them in pens of various kinds, and as a matter of fact, there are a number of places, place names, geographic names up and down the Indian River Lagoon, like Turtle Pen Point and other names similar to that, which are a throwback to the days when people caught green turtles, kept them for a little while, and then shipped them in larger numbers, especially to St. Augustine.
Today's turtles look good. They're all free of the nasty tumorous disease that's been plaguing them for years.
And these turtles are suffering this virus because of water quality, because of pollutants. What's happening with that?
All of the pathologists and immunologists and those kinds of people are convinced that there is a herpes-type virus involved in the etiology of this disease. Those of us who are more naturalists and ecologists are also convinced that there are so-called environmental cofactors involved, because in places where the estuarine and marine environments have been degraded, that we see this disease cropping up in the juvenile green turtles.
These waters are shallow. There's no current. Water movement here is wind-driven, which means if contaminants go into the lagoon, they stay in it. There are no tides to flush them out. You used to be able to see the bottom of the lagoon, but years of dumping and runoff darkened the waters and very nearly killed off the green turtles.
And they are the only relatively large herbivore other than the manatee in the whole system, really. They feed on seagrasses, but especially also on drift algae. The whole bottom of this lagoon where we find ourselves today is home to a luxuriant growth of especially some kinds of red algae, which the green turtles prefer, and so they are the herbivores of the system.
So while the loggerheads and the green turtles perform two different jobs for the lagoon serves the same purpose for both of them. This is their nursery.
We believe that these little green turtles and loggerheads, after spending a certain period of time in the open ocean, pretty much a pelagic existence, move back to the continental margin, and many of them come into the lagoon, and then this becomes a developmental habitat or developmental and foraging habitat for their teenage, what are equivalent to the teenage years in human beings, and it provides excellent feeding and where they can grow. The growth rates of green turtles here in the lagoon are really quite fabulous.
As closely as these biologists work with the turtles, there's still a lot we don't know about them. Once these juveniles reach maturity, they'll leave the lagoon forever. Where they go, no one knows for sure. We're also not sure how their environment ties into sharply contrasting systems like the Florida scrub. It would seem they have no relationship to each other.
However, I think that the interesting thing is the kinds of things that do indeed occur both places and bridge the gap. For example, one critter that I'm in love with is something that, and people will think I'm nuts, and that's okay. The eastern wood rat. It's a native Florida mammal, a native North American mammal that builds enormous stick nests, houses, and they're characteristic of the Florida scrub, the Ocala forest, and the pine turkey oak forest, and so forth. But guess what? They also occur in the hammocks that line the borders of the Indian River Lagoon.
In the 1990s, the 6 counties surrounding the Indian River Lagoon stepped up and created programs to help protect and restore the estuary. Buffer zones surrounding the lagoon were purchased to help limit stormwater runoff. State and federal programs also established conservation areas. Green turtle populations are now on the rise after coming close to extinction in the 1980s.
Right next door to us here on the lagoon is the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge, newly created by the U.S. Congress in 1990, and our green turtle nest production, that is the number of turtles that come there to nest, green turtles, is going like this. And out here on the lagoon, our capture rates, which are a good indication of the number of juvenile green turtles, these little ones, dinner plate size and slightly bigger, our capture rates are going like this as well. So we believe that what we're seeing and documenting is the beginning of the recovery of the green turtle here in Florida, a species that was so critically important to the heritage of this whole region. From before the time that the Europeans settled here.
So what are the turtles telling you about the Indian River Lagoon?
I think the turtles have told us, don't give up on this system. This is a beautiful system. A lot of people are just in love with the lagoon. It's such an important part of the heritage of this whole region. I think the turtles are saying this is still a beautiful, incredibly diverse ecosystem, and it really is, and one in which they find all the things they need for these critical growth periods in their lives, so let's keep up the good work, let's keep up the good fight, and not let things deteriorate any further, because we find a home here.
I hope you'll take advantage of the opportunity to take your family fishing, hiking, or kayaking somewhere along the Indian River Lagoon. If birds are your special passion, there are some real great places to go. At the Canaveral National Seashore, you can enjoy a day at the beach, explore the trails for wildlife, or paddle the Mosquito Lagoon. And to learn more about this special place, and the others we'll be visiting in this series, go to Naturally Central Florida at these websites. The Indian River Lagoon is just one of the places in Central Florida that's either stressed by development or being lost to subdivisions and parking lots. In this Naturally Central Florida series, we'll visit all of them, including the Green Swamp, the Wekiva-Ocala Greenway, and the Lake Wales Ridge. All of them are facing threats that can be diverted if we have the political will. Florida has a great record of protecting the beautiful landscapes and sensitive ecology of our state, with landmark programs like Preservation 2000 and Florida Forever. But now the pressures of growth and development are threatening some of the most precious and important places in our region, and we have to find a way to protect the investment we've already made and finish the job. A group of citizens and environmentalists and business people have come together in an effort to do that, and we hope that you're going to want to be part of it. So thanks for watching, and please join us again next time for Naturally Central Florida.